What's happening, friends? Trumpeter Bobby Spellman here to welcome you to the very first episode in our new Transcription series. I figure there is no better way to learn the art and theory and style of improvisation than to study the greats. So on each one of these episodes, we will cover a great solo. And I'm going to play the transcription for you, play the recording of that solo. You can check it out. And then after that, I will break it down, go over the theory of what's going on, some of the history, and hopefully lend a little insight into what's happening in the music. So we're going to start off strong with this series with one of my favorite recordings of all time, Wayne Shorter's Speak No Evil. And today, we're going to cover the greats, and we're talking about jazz trumpet. On the list of greatest of all time has to be the great Freddie Hubbard. Freddie's on this record, and he takes a bunch of amazing solos. So we're going to start off with his solo on the first track on Speak No Evil, Witch Hunt, on this very exciting episode of Theory with Bob. All right, one quick note. This is going to be in concert pitch so that everybody can follow along with this video. But if you're a trumpet player or you play an E-flat instrument like alto, baritone, saxophone, and you want to follow along in your key, you can follow the link in the description below and find yourself a copy of this transcription in your favorite key. All right, before we dive into the solo, quick background on what's going on here. Speak No Evil was Wayne Shorter's third album for Blue Note, and it was recorded on December 24th of 1964. This is an interesting time period in particular because the last recording that Wayne Shorter did with Art Blakey was in May of 1964, and after that he joined the Miles Davis Quintet. So what we find in Wayne Shorter's world at this moment in time is a transition away from that hard-driving, bluesy, hard bop feel of Art Blakey and into the more ethereal post-bop world of the Miles Davis Quintet in the 60s, which really lends itself to, this record is a very interesting moment in time because you can hear in these recordings, in these particular compositions that Wayne Shorter wrote for this recording, this sort of bridging the gap between this deep blues kind of approach and the more, let's say, avant-garde leaning end of that post-bop spectrum. And of course, Wayne Shorter has on here, it's his approach to these, the tunes themselves have this kind of spooky atmosphere to them. You've got Witch Hunt, Fee Fi Fo Fum, Dance Cadaverous, Speak No Evil. They all have this kind of like mysterious, spooky nature to even the titles and the content of the music. And it makes for a really amazing record, a bunch of amazing solos. So, Freddie Hubbard at that time was still playing in Art Blakey's band. Freddie Hubbard had played with Wayne Shorter in Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers from 1961 to 1966. So Freddie Hubbard's right in the middle of the Art Blakey, his Art Blakey era, and he is playing really top-notch trumpet. This is also right before he started to get into some more avant-garde kind of approaches that you'll hear when he's playing with Eric Dolphy on Out to Lunch, or with Bobby Hutcherson on some of his records, Components and others in 1965. So Freddie Hubbard's right in the middle of a bunch of really interesting stuff, and you're going to be able to hear that in this solo. So without further ado, I'm going to jump in. This is Witch Hunt and Freddie Hubbard's very excellent two choruses on Witch Hunt. It sounds like this. All right, and there you have it. One of the great jazz trumpeters of all time, Freddie Hubbard, playing on one of the great jazz recordings of all time, Speak No Evil, on the first track, Witch Hunt. Now, before we get into the specifics of what Freddie is doing in that solo, I want to mention that one of the things that jumps out at me from not only this track, but a couple of the tracks on this album and much of Wayne Shorter's music of this era is that ability to really balance that down-home, unapologetic blues vibe with that more ethereal, abstract approach that Wayne Shorter, Freddie Hubbard, Herbie Hancock, and others would continue to play with into the 60s. So just to give a little context to this solo, as I mentioned before, this record was recorded in December 24th of 1964. 1964 also found Freddie Hubbard playing with Eric Dolphy's band on Out to Lunch. And he would continue to play with Eric Dolphy. Into 1965, he started playing with Bobby Hutcherson on records like Components and others, as well as a number of others, Sam Rivers and a number of other avant-gardists of the time, let's say. So Freddie Hubbard was at this very interesting place where he's coming from playing with Art Blakey. He still played with Art Blakey. He played with Art Blakey from 1961 to 1966. So he's right in the middle of playing with Art Blakey, and a lot of that music has that serious drive, that hard bop, bluesy, no-nonsense drive, and you can hear that in Freddie's playing. But he's also starting to get into some more textural approaches. So let's check this out. All right, one more quick thing before we dive into the solo. I just want to talk a little bit about the form. The form of Witch Hunt is similar to a number of Wayne Shorter tunes from this era. And what we have here is basically a big modal section followed by some faster moving chords. So most of the tune, you're hanging out in that C minor sound. It makes a quick shift over to E flat 7, sharp 11 for a second, back to C minor again, but you're sort of in that realm for a little while. And then to give the piece a little bit more motion, there's some chords at the end that takes us through some interesting chord changes. So with that being said, without further ado, let's dive into what's happening in this Freddie Hubbard solo. So Wayne Shorter ends his solo, and Freddie Hubbard, cool as a cucumber, takes 2 bars off to hang out before he comes in with this line. So first of all, I love that response from Herbie Hancock. What a great moment. Another reminder of how cool this music is, that everybody's listening and creating music in real time. That's such a fun little response, fun little call and response. There's a lot to be said for Freddie just leaving space for everything to happen. It's worthwhile remembering too that the drummer on this record is Elvin Jones, who had just that amazing triplet feel. He is absolutely just the groove on this is unreal. So you can listen to all these bluesy phrases are really complemented by Elvin Jones on the drums. All that there is just the blues scale. We're just dealing with the concert C blues scale. And what you notice there, I don't know if septuplet, whatever 16th note septuplets is exactly the perfect way of writing that rhythm, but in that instance and throughout the rest of the tune, you notice Freddie playing these very fast kind of lines that are a bunch of notes, and a lot of the time that seems to me as much rhythmically textural as it is specific rhythm. So he's running through lines like that. Freddie keeps going on with this real down home, just swinging, open space, just leaves a little space in between these phrases, running through basically that C minor sound. Now in this instance, it's a very C Dorian kind of sound. He's playing it over the E flat 7, but he's more or less sticking to the C Dorian kind of sound. Bunch of space here is great. Then we get into the next little section where the chords start to move a little faster, and Freddie starts playing these more textural approaches to the changes, more or less following the chords. In particular on that G flat major 7 chord, he's playing the major 7 to the 6 to the 5. Quick triplet sounds like this. Followed by the same phrase down a half step. Now that's a F7 chord there, but he's playing the major 7 on it. I don't know if that's just a matter of transposing it down a half step. I think at times Freddie sort of decides for himself what he wants the 7 to be, and that's just fine. Works fine. No complaints from me. All right. Hey, from that, he follows a little semi-chromatic line down from the F down to the E flat. Now that deals in trumpet world, for the trumpet players out there, he's doing a lot in this recording with alternate fingerings. He can use 2 different alternate fingering. Saxophone players do this a lot. That enables him to get a sort of rhythmic approach even though he doesn't have to re-articulate the note. So in this case, I'm going to play that line very slowly so you can check out what it is. Played quickly. Now there you can hear he can play concert F with either open or 1 and 2, so he's getting a little of that rhythmic flavor. Now, a lot of these phrases that you hear in this recording are going to come back. It's the sort of approach that he's going to use. I think maybe one of the best examples is his playing on Herbie Hancock's Maiden Voyage. There are a lot of instances there where really what he's playing is these very these certain kind of rhythmic textures. Rather than being specific rhythms that you'd be used to hearing in sort of a more bebop context, he's really playing around with the rhythm textures. So you can hear that here as well. He's playing down that line and then accenting this other E flat 7. That kind of a little quick 16th note move. And then follows that on that A flat minor 7 with another line that is similar, goes like this. I'm going to play it slowly for you. Ready? More quickly. So once again, he's using that alternate fingering to get that rhythmic approach. Now right there you can see there's a little of that sort of post-bop, pre-avant-garde abstraction where you're playing a lot of chromatics in those lines. It's a very different style, but I suppose there's some similarities between Miles' playing in the 60s, especially in the Plug Nickel, where he starts to play around a lot with chromatics. But here, Freddie's just using those chromatic notes in between other notes of the scale to get him from where he's going to where he needs to be, from where he is to where he needs to be. All right, so now we go on, and you can't talk about Freddie Hubbard without mentioning his absolute acrobatic feats of trumpet superhumanness. All right, and this is one instance where I'm thinking to myself, all right, you're in Rudy Van Gelder's studio in 1964 with Wayne Shorter, Herbie Hancock, Elvin Jones, and Ron Carter, and if you make any mistakes, it's going to be on wax for the rest of your life, and he is absolutely going for it, going into outer space. So, as a trumpet player, and as a professional jazz trumpet player, I'm going to attempt to play some of the rest of this. We're going to see what happens. But other trumpet players are going to understand how crazy this is that he plays some of these things, and the rest of you, I think, will get a kick out of me trying to play it. All right, so here's the next phrase. This sort of starts, this is the beginning, sort of in anticipation of the next chorus. It goes like this. I think that's enough. Do I need to torture you with this? You get the gist. That's a lot of high Fs. He's going for it, man. This guy is at the top of his game. There's just a part of his playing that is just being able to do crazy stuff. It's just acrobatics. And it's beautiful. I mean, it's musical. It isn't like, some people gave him a little bit of a hard time later in his life because he started to do a lot of things that were sort of flagrantly acrobatic, but this is just one instance where he's pulling out the stops and going into 5th gear to mix metaphors, and he's having a good old time. Let me try that one more time. I'm going to try that last line one more time. Once again, at the end there, you get a little bit of a phrase that Freddie can play better than I can, for sure. It's a very fast 10-note line, and I don't know if it's better to write it as tenlets, but at a certain point, it becomes a little outrageous to try to specifically notate these things. It's really just the texture that we're dealing with. So if anybody has any better recommendations as to how to notate that line, let me know. But otherwise, I think what's happening here is really more of a textural thing. All right, from there, Freddie keeps going. He goes into full blast here, and you can hear the pretty fast 16th note line that he takes going through the next 4 measures of the tune as they go into that E flat 7 sharp 11 chord. That sounds like this. All right, so there from a harmonic standpoint, he's basically hanging out in that sort of E-flat Mixolydian realm, but then he's thrown in back in some of that C Dorian, and there's a lot of chromatics involved. I think it has more to do with the rhythmic drive of the 16th notes than the specifics of the harmony in that particular instance, but it's certainly effective what he's doing. One thing that you notice is the last 4 16th notes is he just absolutely beautifully transitions back into that C minor sound using a little taste of that G Phrygian dominant. So there you have just a little implying that A7 flat 9, G7 flat 9 for in concert pitch. G7 flat 9 resolving back to the C Dorian sound. All right, from here there's a little interesting line we can take from this. I'm going to play this slowly for you so you can hear what he's doing. Now he does that really fast. Freddie's dexterity was no joke. Now with a line like this, I think there's a bunch of different ways that you can take this and play around with it. So when I see something like this in a solo, I like to say to myself, all right, is there a way that I can take this and incorporate this kind of an approach into my own practicing in order to be able to have a better command of the various scales that I'm working with? Now you can learn your scales up and down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but where you really start to get very familiar with them and really know what you're doing is when you can play them in all kinds of different iterations. So this is a great example of a way that you can take this kind of a pattern and extrapolate it into a bunch of different ways. So just as an example, in case you're interested in practicing some of this stuff, I'm going to take this one little phrase and break it down into a couple different patterns so that you can check out one way of practicing this kind of an approach. All right, so once again, Freddie plays this really cool line. It kind of sounds like this. So you can take an idea like that and break it down into its component parts. So I might play something that's like this. I'm going to play up 3 notes and then down the phrase, just going down the scale. That sounds like this. All right, so there's one way to play it. You could also play it backwards like this. Not much to that, but it's just another iteration of this. You could go down, but go up the scale, down in seconds, but go up the scale. Etc. You can take this around the whole range of the instrument. Then you could do a little bit closer to what Freddie's actually doing, and that sounds like this. Take it through this pattern. Then you can take it one more direction and just go down the scale, go like this. There's a million different ways you can do this. All I'm showing you is that sometimes with a solo, it's not so much a matter of just taking and exactly replicating what somebody does to learn how to do it, but rather you can take these ideas and make your own little exercises with them. So now we find ourselves at the end of this little phrase. Now we're going into the second half of the tune where you get those faster moving changes. You can hear Freddie going back into that kind of down-home triplet feel. Nobody plays triplets better than Elvin Jones, and Freddie Hubbard gets to play with Elvin on this particular recording. And I think that really shines through. You can hear that down-home swing, those underlying triplets, and oh man, does it feel good. Whoo, is this a fun recording. All right. Bop boop ba dee 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 boop bop bop boo dee dee ba da boo wee ba da doo dee. So that's a great little triplet line you can hear there on that G flat major 7. Then he goes over to an F Mixolydian sound until he lands on the E major chord. That's mostly E major, but he throws a flat 7 in there. I'm not exactly sure. I think he's just superimposing whatever he wants over that E major sound. But in this particular instance, it goes pretty E major, all things considered. He ends with E6 arpeggio. However, he's got that little flat 7 in there. What's that doing there? I think Freddie Hubbard just did whatever he wanted to do, and I'm not here to argue with Freddie Hubbard. All right? That's what we're dealing with here. Freddie does what Freddie wants. And then the end of the solo is just a great little exploration of some of these keys and lands right back on that concert G on the 5 chord, on the 5 of the 1 chord, I should say, and that leads us right into Herbie Hancock's solo. So that sounds a little something like this. We'll take it out with this last little phrase. I'll let Freddie play it for you. And after all this crazy stuff that's been going on for the last 16 or so bars, it's such a beautiful way to end. Make a way for Herbie Hancock's solo in the tune. So there you have it. Freddie Hubbard's amazing solo on Witch Hunt. You can get a sense for yourself for all the things that he's doing. If you'd like to practice some of these lines and check out what he's doing, you can find a link to the PDFs of these transcriptions down in the comments below. You can give these a shot for yourself, or take them and write your own exercises based on some of the things that he was playing. There's no better way to get into the mind of an improviser than by jotting down the specifics of what they were doing, trying to get it under your fingers, get a feel for it, trying to occupy their mind, whatever was happening at that space at that time. So this is a really beautiful solo. I'm going to go through the rest of this record. I've done it. I've gone through this. I've transcribed this album, all of the Freddie Hubbard solos. Now, I'm a trumpet player, so admittedly, I'm a little biased. And I love Freddie Hubbard. So I didn't do all the Wayne Shorter solos or the Herbie Hancock solos, but if you want to do that, and link them in the description so we can check out those, or rather not the description, but the comments, we'd love to see it. If you have any interesting insights of your own, leave them in the comments. I want to allow these transcription videos to be an opportunity to create a little community in the comments section, a little loving and unified community in the comments section, just geeking out about how cool this music is. All right, gang, so if you got some comments on this particular solo or other ideas related to it, leave them in the comments. Let's learn from each other. All right, gang, so there you have it. Freddie Hubbard solo on Witch Hunt. I'm going to do, next week's episode is going to be on Fee Fi Fo Fum, another great combination of that hard bop, post bop, wild approach with that no-nonsense Art Blakey style blues, and you're going to have a lot of fun with it. So if you like this video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and you'll be able to catch a new video next week on this episode. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm not going to do videos on YouTube for every one of these, but I am going to post them all to the Patreon. So if you want to find these other transcriptions, if you're digging this and you want to get deeper into some other solos on this record, I'm going to do 2 of them on the YouTube channel, and the rest of them you can find on Patreon right here. So go check out the Patreon if you want to catch up with some of the other solos, and I'm going to be trying to do these on the regular. So if you like it, let me know. I hope you do, because I sure do. All right, gang, have a wonderful time practicing, and I'll catch you on the next one. See ya. Theory with Bob. All right, friends, thanks so much for checking out this video. We hope it helps in your quest for the majesty of musical self-expression. If you like what we're doing here, you can give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one. And if you'd like to support the creation of new videos like this, you can become a subscriber on our Patreon page at patreon.com/Ridgewood School of Music. There, subscribers will have access to more in-depth follow-up videos, as well as solo transcriptions, various musical exercises, and all kinds of fun stuff. If you'd like to follow me on my musical adventures, you can find me on Instagram at Bob Spellman, and you can follow the Ridgewood School of Music's other social media pages by following the links in the description below. The Ridgewood School of Music is currently accepting new students online or in person in the New York City area. If you're interested in lessons, you can find us at www.ridgewoodschoolofmusic.com, or you can send us an email at ridgewoodschoolofmusic@gmail.com, and we can set you up with a great teacher for the instrument and the style of music that you're interested in studying. All right, gang, well, have a wonderful time practicing, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya. That line is insane. I can't believe you played that on a recording. Freddie's just out there having fun, man. It's been playing with Art Blakey for 5 years will do to you. 4 years, whatever it was. 1961 and 1964. If you played in Art Blakey's band every day for 3 or 4 years, I bet you'd be on point too. This is deep. It's hard to beat. All right, that's enough.